Reading through the Bible in 1 year, January 22nd, Genesis 23, Matthew 22, Nehemiah chapter 12, and Acts 22. And Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Then Abraham rose from before his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a sojourner and a foreign resident among you. Give me a possession for a burial site among you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial sites. None of us will refuse you his burial sites for burying your dead. So Abraham arose and bowed to the people of the land, the sons of Heth, and he spoke with them, saying, If it is your desire for me to bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and meet with Ephron the son of Zohar for me, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which belongs to him, which is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as a possession for a burial site. Now Ephron was sitting among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite, or Hethite, same thing, answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, even of all who went in at the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people I give it to you. Bury your dead. And Abraham bowed before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If you will only please hear me, I will give the silver for the field. Accept it for me, that I may bury my dead there. Then Ephron answered Abraham, saying, My lord, hear me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver, what is that between me and you? So bury your dead. So Abraham heard Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, a commercial standard. So Ephron's field, which was in Machpelah, which faced Mamre, the field and the cave which was in it, and all the trees which were in the field that were within the confines of its border, were deeded over to Abraham as purchase in the sight of the sons of Heth before all who came in at the gate of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field at Machpelah facing Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave that is in it were deeded over to Abraham for a possession for a burial site by the sons of Heth. And that is all the notes. Let's move on to Matthew chapter 22. And Jesus answered and spoke to them again in parables, saying, The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son. And he sent out his slaves to call those who had been called to the wedding feast, and they were unwilling to come. Again, he sent out other slaves, saying, Tell those who have been called, Behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fattened livestock are all butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding feast. But they paid no attention and went their way, one to his farm, another to his business, and the rest seized his slaves and mistreated them and killed them. But the king was enraged, and he sent his armies and destroyed those murderers and set their city on fire. Then he said to his slaves, The wedding is ready, but those who are called were not worthy. Go therefore to the main highways, and as many as you find there, call to the wedding feast. And those slaves went out into the streets and gathered together all they found, both good and evil, and the wedding hall was filled with dinner guests. But when the king came in to look over the dinner guests, he saw a man there who was not dressed in wedding clothing. And he said to him, Friend, how did you come in here without wedding clothes? The man was speechless. Then the king said to the servant, Bind him hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Let's read the notes on this one here. About the man who had no wedding garment, reading out of the ESV study Bible. Everyone was invited, but proper wedding attire was still expected. There are two possibilities for what this means. One, there is some evidence in the ancient world for a king supplying garments for his guests. Genesis 45:22 and Esther 6, verses 8 through 9. And more broadly, there is the story of God clothing his unworthy people in beautiful garments. Ezekiel chapter 16. Jesus could thus be alluding to imputed righteousness, which Paul elaborates later. Thus, by not wearing the garments provided, this guest has highly insulted the host. Or two, the wedding garment may refer to a clean garment, symbolizing evidence of righteous works. In either case, this man lacks something that is essential for being accepted at the wedding feast. Finally, the note here about many are called but few are chosen, again from the ESV Study Bible. Many, Greek polloi, are called means that many have been invited to the wedding feast, but not all those invited are actually the ones who are supposed to be there, because few are chosen. This has been described as the doctrine of general calling. The gospel is proclaimed to all people everywhere, but those who those who will believe. Starting over. Okay. This has been described as the doctrine of general calling. The gospel is proclaimed to all people everywhere, both those who will believe and those who will not. However, Paul also mentions another kind of calling, an effective calling. This effective calling from God that comes powerfully to individuals and brings a positive response. This is one that basically forces engagement. The effective calling of God cannot be ignored, right? When the gospel is proclaimed, only some are effectively called. That is, those who are of the elect, who respond with true faith. This is consistent with Jesus' statement that few are chosen, for the chosen, Greek eklektos, selected or chosen, are the elect, a term used by Jesus to refer to his true disciples. We'll see more of this on Romans chapter 9. Continuing in the text, verse 15. Then the Pharisees went and took counsel together how they might trap him in what he said. And they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth and defer to no one, for you are not partial to any. Trying to build him up, right? Therefore, tell us, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their wickedness, said, Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax. They brought him a denarius. And he said to them, Whose likeness and inscription is this? They said to him, Caesar's. Then, said he, Therefore render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And hearing this, they marveled, and leaving him, they went away. Why did they marvel? Well, think about what's being said here. Whose likeness and inscription is on the coin? Well, it's Caesar's, so it belongs to him, and he can do with it what he will. If he wants it back, give it back. But whose likeness and inscription are we made in? We're made in God's image. We're made in God's likeness. Therefore, we should also render to God ourselves because we belong to him. Again, hearing this, they marveled. They're like, we never thought he would go that way. Or, I never thought of that before. Verse 23. And on that day, some Sadducees, who say that there is no resurrection, therefore they are sad, you see, came to Jesus and asked him a question. More than this, they not only don't believe in the resurrection, they believe that when you die, it's like turning off a light. That's it. There's nothing more to happen for you. They also don't believe in angels. They don't believe in miracles. They don't believe in any of these things. So they came to Jesus and asked him a question. Again, they're also trying him in their own way, saying, Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies having no children, his brother, as next of kin, shall marry his wife and raise up a seed for his brother. Right? Now, there were 7 theoretical brothers with us. The first married and died, and having no seed, he left his wife to his brother. So also the second and the third, down to the 7th. And last of all, the woman died. Well, yeah, she was married 7 times. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had married her. But Jesus answered and said to them, You're mistaken, not understanding the scriptures nor the power of God. He's seeing right through what they're saying. Verse 30, For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven, meaning complete. They don't need to be married. Here on earth, we have a partner to bear with us and to help us. But in heaven, we won't need that. We'll be complete. Verse 31, But regarding the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. When the crowds heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. But when the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered themselves together. And one of them, a scholar of the law, asked him a question, testing him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang the whole law and the prophets. Now, while the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them a question. They've been asking him questions his entire ministry. Now he's turning it around and asking them, saying, What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he? They said to him, Well, the son of David. That's the standard response, right? And he said to them, Then how does David, in the Spirit, call him Lord? Saying, and now he's quoting from Psalm 110, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit at my right hand until I put your enemies beneath your feet. Therefore, if David calls him Lord, how is he his son? And no one was able to answer him a word, nor did anyone dare from that day on to ask him another question. That is all of the notes. Let's move on now to Nehemiah chapter 12. Now these are the priests and the Levites who came up with Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, Sariah, Jeremiah, Ezra, as in the Ezra of the book of Ezra we just read, Amariah, Maluk, Hattush, Shechaniah, Rehum, Meremoth, Iddo, Genethoi, Abijah, Mijamin, Maadiah, there we go, Bilgah, Shemaiah, Joyarib, Jediah, Salu, Amok, Hilkiah, and Jediah. These were the heads of the priests and their relatives in the days of Jeshua. The Levites were Jeshua, Benui, Kadmiel, Sherebiah, Judah, and Mattaniah, who was over the songs of thanksgiving, and he and his brothers. Also Bakbukiah and Uni, their brothers, stood opposite them in keeping their responsibilities. Jeshua became the father of Jehoiakim, and Joiakim became the father of Eliashib, and Eliashib became the father of Joiada, and Joiada became the father of Jonathan, and Jonathan became the father of Jaddua. Now, in the days of Jehoiakim, the priests, that's good, way far ahead. There we go. And now in the days of Jehoiakim, the priests, the heads of fathers' households, were of Sariah, Moriah, of Jeremiah, Hananiah, of Ezra, Meshullam, of Amariah, Jehohanan, of Maluki, Jonathan, of Shebaniah, Joseph, of Harim, Adnah, of Marioth, Helkai, Of Edo, Zechariah; of Ginnethon, Meshullam; of Abijah, Zichri; of Miniamin; of Moadiah, Piltai; of Bilgah, Shemua; of Shemaiah, Jehonathan, or Jehonathan, depending on how you want to pronounce that; of Joirib, Mattanai; of Jediah, Uzi; of Salai, Kalai; of Amok, Eber; of Hilkiah, Hashabiah; and of Jediah, Nethanel. As for the Levites, in the days of Eliashib, Joiada, and Johanan, and Jeduah, the heads of fathers' households were written down, and the priests were also in the reign of Darius the Persian. The sons of Levi, the heads of fathers' households, were written down in the book of the Chronicles up to the days of Johanan, the son of Eliashib. The heads of the Levites were Hashabiah, Sherebiah, and Jeshua, the son of Kadmiel, with their brothers opposite them, to praise the hands. Sorry, not to praise the hands, not just the hands. Starting back over at the beginning of verse 24, the heads of the Levites were Hashabiah, Sherebiah, and Jeshua, the son of Kadmiel, with their brothers opposite them, to praise and give thanks by the commandment of David, the man of God, watch by watch. Mattaniah, Bakbukiah, Obadiah, Meshullam, Talmon, and Akub were gatekeepers keeping watch at the storerooms of the gates. These served in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, in the days of Nehemiah the governor, and of Ezra the priest and scribe. Now, at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought out the Levites from all their places, to bring them to Jerusalem, so that they might celebrate the dedication with gladness, with hymns of thanksgiving and songs to the accompaniment of cymbals, harps, and lyres. So the sons of the singers were gathered from the district around Jerusalem, and from the villages of the Netophathites, from Beth Gilgal, and from their fields in Geba and Asmaveth, for the singers had built themselves villages around Jerusalem. The priests and the Levites cleansed themselves. They also cleansed the people, the gates, and the wall. Then I had the leaders of Judah come up on top of the wall, and I had two great choirs of thanksgiving stand, the first proceeding to the right on top of the wall toward the dung gate. Hoshea and half the leaders of Judah followed them, with Azariah, Ezra, Meshullam, Judah, Benjamin, Shemaiah, Jeremiah, and some of the sons of the priests with trumpets, and Zechariah, the son of Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, the son of Mattaniah, the son of Micaiah, the son of Zakur, the son of Asaph, and his relatives, Shemaiah, Azarel, Melalai, yep, that looks good, Gilalai, Maai, Nethanel, Judah, and Hanani, with the musical instruments of David, the man of God. And Ezra the scribe went before them. At the spring gate, they went directly up the steps of the city starting over, verse 37. At the spring gate, they went directly up the steps of the city of David by the stairway of the wall above the house of David to the water gate on the east. The second choir proceeded to the left, while I followed them with half the people on the wall. Half of the people on the wall, above the tower of furnaces to the broad wall, and above the gate of Ephraim, by the old gate, by the fish gate, the tower of Hananel, the tower of the 100, and as far as the sheep gate, and they stood at the gate of the guard. Then the two choirs took their stand in the house of God. So did I, and half the officials with me. And the priests, Eliakim, Maaseiah, Miniamin, Micaiah, Elioenai, Zechariah, and Hananiah, with their trumpets, and Maaseiah, Shemaiah, Eleazar, Uzi, Jehohanan, Malchijah, Elam, and Ezer. And the singers made their voices heard, with Jezrahiah, their overseer. And on that day they offered great sacrifices, and were glad, because God had given them great gladness. Even the women and the children were glad. so that the gladness of Jerusalem was heard from afar. On that day, men were also appointed over the chambers for the stores, the contributions, the firstfruits, and the tithes, to gather into them from the fields of the cities the portions required by the law for the priests and Levites. For Judah was glad over the priests and Levites who stood to minister. And they kept their responsibility given by their God and the responsibility of cleansing, together with the singers and the gatekeepers, according to the commandment of David and his son Solomon. For in the days of David and Asaph, in ancient times, they were chiefs of the singers, songs of praise and hymns of thanksgiving to God. So all Israel, in the days of Zerubbabel and Nehemiah, were giving the portions due the singers and gatekeepers as each day required, and set apart the holy portion for the Levites. And the Levites set apart the holy portion for the sons of Aaron. Now let's conclude with Acts chapter 22. Now Paul has been arrested in Jerusalem, and he's standing at the top of the step. And remember that the leader of the Roman cohort came in and assumed that he was some sort of rabble rouser because he couldn't make sense what everybody was saying. All he knew is that they were saying that he should be killed. So he made an assumption, had him bound and drug him up and lifted him above all of the soldiers to carry him out, because all the people were trying to kill him. As he was being ushered out, he asked the centurion, he asked the cohort, "May I please make a defense of myself?" And the guy says, "Whoa, you can speak Greek?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a Jew from Tarsus. Can I at least talk to the people?" So he said, "Okay, sure." So Paul was set down, and now he's motioning with his hand. So obviously he's no longer bound, and now he's able to give his defense to the people. That's what begins here. Verse 1. Men, brothers, and fathers, hear my defense, which I now offer to you. When they heard he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they became even quieter. And he said, "I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but having been brought up in this city, having been instructed at the feet of Gamaliel, according to the strictest of the law of our fathers, being zealous for God, just as you are all today. I persecuted this way," again, or rather the way, that's another term for Christianity, "to the death, binding and delivering both men and women into prisons. And also the high priest and all the council of the elders can testify. From them I also received letters to the brothers, and started off for Damascus in order to bring even those who are there to Jerusalem as prisoners to be punished, possibly to death. But it happened that as I was on my way, approaching Damascus about noontime, so the sun was hot in the sky, a very bright light, brighter than that of the sun, suddenly flashed from heaven all around me. And I fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' And I answered, 'Who are you, Lord?' And he said to me, 'I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting.' And those who were with me beheld the light, to be sure, but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. And I said, 'What should I do, Lord?' And he said to me, the Lord said to me, 'Rise up and go on into Damascus, and there you'll be told of all that has been determined for you to do.' But since I could not see because of the glory of that light, being led by the hand by those who were with me, I came into Damascus. Now a certain man, Ananias, a man who was devout by the standard of the law, and well spoken of by all the Jews who lived there, came to me, and standing near said, 'Brother Saul, regain your sight.' And at that very hour I regained my sight and saw him. And he said, 'The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will, and to see the righteous one, and to hear a voice from his mouth. For you will be a witness for him to all the men of what you have seen and heard. Now, why do you delay? rise up and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on his name. Again, name, not the way you physically speak. It's the character and nature and the representation of who he is. Verse 17. Now it happened when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple that I fell into a trance. And I saw him saying to me, hurry and get up out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your witness about me. And I said, Lord, they themselves understand that in one synagogue after another, I used to imprison and beat those who believed in you. And when the blood of your witness Stephen was being shed, I also was standing by approving and guarding the garments of those who were slaying him. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. And they were listening to him up to this statement. And then they raised their voices and said, away with such a fellow from the earth. He should not be allowed to live. Again, why are they saying this? Because they know he's talking about the God of Israel. And here the God of Israel is telling him to go and talk to the Gentiles, to take the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ to the Gentiles. And they can't stand this. Verse 23, and as they were crying out and throwing off their garments and tossing dust into the air, the commander ordered him to be brought into the barracks, stating that he should be examined by flogging so that he might find out the reason why they were shouting against him in that way. But when they had stretched him out with leather straps, so they basically took off his garment, basically it's a leash of leather, a strap of leather around his wrists. They pull him over this stone, right? So he can't move. So his back's open to the guy who's going to be whipping him. And he's going to be whipped with not just a leather strap, but they typically have pieces of bone or glass or sharp rocks tied in there with it. It's meant to literally just rip the skin off your back, right? That's what they're about to do to him. When they had stretched him out with the leather straps, Paul said to the centurion who was standing by, Is it lawful for you to flog a man who is a Roman and uncondemned? Again, sarcasm. When the centurion heard this, well, he went to the commander and reported to him saying, what are you about to do? For this man is a Roman. And the commander came, I'm assuming rushing, and said to him, tell me, are you a Roman? And he said, yes. And the commander answered, well, I acquired this citizenship, mine, with a large sum of money. You can buy your way into it. It doesn't make you a full Roman citizen. And Paul said to him, but I have been born a citizen. Therefore, those who were about to examine him, torture him, immediately withdrew from him. And the commander was also afraid when he learned he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. This is against the law. But on the next day, wishing to know for certain why he had been accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin to come together, and brought down Paul and set him before them. Making sure you have all the notes in here, and we do. All right. That is all of the text, and that is all the reading for today. So, God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.